Tell me, do you love me too?
57 years of being married to one man. I tell you what, we didn't really know each other until after we got married.
The divorce, I regret. However, I've become a much stronger person out of that.
People often say, no man can escape the snare of a beautiful woman. And even the most powerful black legends of Hollywood were no exception. They conquered the stage, crushed every prejudice, became undefeated icons. But in the end, all of them knelt before women so beautiful, the entire entertainment industry envied them. Some married a wife 17 years older just because of a cold glance. Some wrote entire albums to beg forgiveness after a night of infidelity. Some lost millions when the woman they once loved madly walked away without leaving a note. And some, right when they stood on the peak of glory, were dragged straight into the abyss by that same beauty. So which 21 black male artists married the women considered the most beautiful in the entertainment industry? And what tragedies awaited them behind that glamorous curtain? Get ready to start with the very first names right now. 21, Smokey Robinson and Claudette Robinson, the beauty that made a genius lose his mind. In the list of black men who married wives so beautiful, the entire music industry felt jealous. Smokey Robinson probably deserves to be named first. He was the king of soul at Motown, the man who wrote immortal songs like Tracks of My Tears and Cruisin', with a voice as smooth as velvet that melted the hearts of millions. Many said if there had been no Smokey, American music would have lacked half its romance. That was also why he captured the heart of a woman millions dreamed of. On November 7, 1959, when he took Claudette's hand and walked into their simple wedding in Detroit, everyone said Motown had just witnessed a fairy tale love story. Back then, Claudette was not only the lead singer of The Miracles, but was also considered the woman with the sweetest beauty at the label, her long black hair cascading down her back, her round face touched with an uncommon nobility, her brown skin always soft as velvet. Every time she smiled, her lips curved gently and her brown eyes sparkled. People said she didn't even need stage lights to outshine any other singer. Smokey was so infatuated that he once wrote My Girl just for Claudette, calling it the only song beautiful enough to match her. But that same obsessive love dragged him down. Throughout the 1970s, Smokey often left home for weeks, burying himself in endless studio nights and pleasures. Claudette kept waiting silently, still wearing that gentle beauty everyone adored. But everything collapsed on the afternoon of March 15, 1984, when Claudette was cleaning out an old cabinet in the office where Smokey usually stuffed papers. As she pulled out a stack of files, a birth certificate slipped to the floor and slid all the way to her feet. Claudette bent down to pick it up, her heart pounding when she saw the child's name printed clearly, last name Robinson. Father Smokey Robinson, mother a woman she had never heard of. The corner of the paper was stained with red lipstick, like a slap across the last shred of her trust, even worse. The child's birth date was exactly 17 days after the night Smokey had held her to celebrate their 20th wedding anniversary. She stood frozen, feeling hollow inside, as if someone had carved a deep hole into her chest. When Smokey came home, it was already dark, and a sharp, unfamiliar perfume clung to his collar. Claudette stepped out from the hallway shadows, her hand clutching the crumpled paper. Her eyes were red, but her voice was calm to the point of cruelty. You know something? I used to be proud of being more beautiful than any woman who stood next to you. But it turns out, this beauty was only meant to be betrayed. And then, 2 years later, they divorced, ending a nearly 30-year marriage once thought the most beautiful in Motown. But even after that, Smokey still admitted not once did he stop missing that gentle face, the beauty that cost him both conscience and sanity. 20, Sammy Davis Jr. and Altovise Davis, the beauty that made the Rat Pack fall and the nightmare behind fame. We all know Sammy Davis Jr. was a music legend, a brilliant member of the Rat Pack, and the man who had it all: fame, talent, and power. But beneath the dazzling spotlight, Did he ever truly find real love after 2 failed marriages? One to actress Lori White and one to Mae Britt. Sammy kept searching for happiness. And then, in 1970, he married his 3rd wife, Altovise Davis, an actress so beautiful anyone would stop and stare. But was that beauty really everything? Or behind that glamorous marriage was a secret few ever knew? On May 11, 1970, in a fresh Philadelphia morning, Sammy Davis Jr. stood beside his stunning wife, Altovise Davis, in a romantic wedding. Sammy, with all his fame and talent, had won the woman everyone admired. Back then, Altovise was a captivating actress with bright eyes and a warm smile, the ideal woman everyone desired. She, beautiful and confident, was the one who brought Sammy light and comfort. But behind that beauty was a heartbreaking story no one knew. Sammy and Altovise's marriage looked like a perfect dream, but in a blink, that dream turned into a nightmare. Though Sammy loved his wife, he couldn't resist all the temptations out there. In 1974, when the world still envied their bond, a huge shock struck. Sammy was caught holding hands with a young singer at a Los Angeles hotel. The image quickly splashed across newspapers, cutting into Altovise's heart like a blade. Even more painful was the betrayal from the man she had trusted completely. Yet, surprisingly, though her heart was shattered, Altovise did not walk away. She stayed with Sammy, choosing forgiveness and continuing to care for him in the months when his health began to fail. Then in 1983, as Sammy was battling throat cancer, their marriage was tested again. A shocking interview exposed secrets Altovise had never wanted to hear. Affairs, late-night rendezvous in fancy hotels, promises never kept. Altovise, then tending to her husband in the hospital, had to face this cruel truth. Those accusations stabbed her like knives. But strangely, she did not blame him. She knew her love for Sammy could never fade, even as everything around them crumbled. And finally, on May 16, 1990, Sammy passed away, ending a legendary life, but also closing a love story full of pain. Yet the tragedy wasn't only about losing love, but also the financial devastation Sammy left behind. Tax debts of $7 million forced Altovise to sell precious belongings to settle the problems Sammy had left. In the end, the woman once considered one of Hollywood's most beautiful had to live in loneliness when everything else had collapsed. Still, Altovise had loved Sammy with her whole heart, even though he never stopped making mistakes and breaking hers. 19. Sidney Poitier and Joanna, the gays that made the first black man to win an Oscar. Forget everything. Next comes the name of perhaps the luckiest man on this list, because he not only married a stunning beauty, but also found a lasting happiness that endured to the end of his life. On the night of April 13, 1964, the auditorium in Los Angeles blazed with light as Sidney Poitier stepped on stage to receive the Oscar statuette for Lilies of the Field. He became the first black actor ever to win Best Actor, a victory that changed film history. Yet behind that confident smile, he still hid a deep loneliness. For years, Sidney felt he had to keep proving his worth under Hollywood's doubtful gaze. Then, in the summer of 1968, everything changed when he met Joanna on the set of The Lost Man in New York. Joanna was then a Canadian actress, famous for her gentle beauty and elegant presence. Her blonde hair fell softly over her shoulders. Her blue eyes radiated kindness, and she made Sidney feel he couldn't believe he was seeing a real person. The first time they spoke, he said, "Your eyes make me forget to be cautious." They started quietly dating throughout the months of filming, after every scene. Sidney would invite Joanna to a little cafe on 47th Street. They would sit together for hours, hands intertwined beneath the table, as if afraid that letting go would make everything disappear. Even as rumors swirled outside about the affair between a black star and a white beauty, they chose to stand by each other. On June 23, 1976, after 8 years of love and countless pressures, Sidney knelt to propose to Joanna right inside their private apartment in Beverly Hills. His hand shook so much he dropped the ring. But Joanna just smiled, bent down to pick it up, and whispered, "I've been waiting for this day so long." After that night, they became husband and wife. Their marriage lasted over 40 years, steady and peaceful in a way few could imagine. Much later, when Sidney received the Lifetime Achievement Oscar in 2002, Joanna still stood beside him, her deep blue eyes looking up at him like a silent reminder that, after all, they had found peace together. 18. Bill Cosby and Camille. Cosby, the noble beauty, standing beside the fallen king of comedy. When Bill Cosby appeared on American television in The Cosby Show in 1984, he instantly became the model of the ideal family man and the most powerful black figure in entertainment at the time. Millions of viewers adored the image of a humorous, polished, endlessly compassionate father. Yet few knew that Camille Cosby, his wife with her elegant beauty and rare intellect, was the quiet foundation through 6 decades of his life. Camille came from an educated family in Washington, D.C., even as a young woman. She attracted press attention with her delicate features, smooth skin, and sharp eyes that reflected a singular confidence. When Bill met Camille in 1963 during a chance date in Maryland, he later confessed, "I knew I would marry her from the first second." Just 1 year later, on January 25, 1964, they held a simple but warm wedding in Massachusetts. Many would call Camille the uncrowned queen of The Cosby Show because she later became a producer and creative advisor, helping to build a television empire worth millions for 3 decades. They appeared together at every award ceremony, large and small. Camille always drew notice for her regal bearing, her black hair swept into an elegant bun, and her calm smile. But what truly stunned the public was her unwavering resolve when the storm came. In November 2014, allegations of sexual assault began to surface, transforming Bill from America's dad into a pariah before the world. In those days of trial, people still saw Camille in her beige coat, hand tightly clasped with her husband's, walking past hundreds of cameras without bowing her head. Many could not understand why a woman as beautiful and independent as Camille would stay. But when asked, she answered calmly, "I don't live for the public, I live for my own convictions." And that was the final image audiences remember of them, the man who once stood atop glory, and the beautiful wife still quietly walking beside him. No matter how the world turned its back. 17. Quincy Jones and Peggy Lipton. The brilliant and fragile marriage. Between a musical genius and a television beauty that once made Hollywood gasp. In the 1970s, Quincy Jones was already a living monument of American music. He was not only the master producer behind the hits of Frank Sinatra and Aretha Franklin, but also the genius who created Thriller, the best-selling album of all time by Michael Jackson. Quincy's reputation shone so brightly that whenever he stepped into a studio, everyone fell silent, waiting for magic to happen. And it was at that peak that Peggy Lipton appeared like an unexpected breeze that blew apart every assumption. Peggy was then the actress adored across America for her role as Julie in The Mod Squad, her sculpted beauty framed by long, sleek blonde hair and deep blue eyes, always carrying a wistful look that no one could turn away from. They met in 1972 at a backstage party where Quincy was engrossed in talking about jazz, and Peggy just watched him quietly from across the room. Later, he said, "In that moment, I knew she would change my life." On September 14, 1974, they married in a discreet ceremony in Los Angeles. Outside, dozens of reporters crowded in just to capture the image of the beautiful actress stepping out in a simple white dress, her hand woven tightly through the arm of the most powerful black man in music. Many saw them as the symbol of hope and harmony between two worlds once thought impossible to unite. For over 15 years. Peggy and Quincy raised 2 beautiful daughters and built a family that seemed unbreakable, yet behind the smiling photos. The distance between them quietly grew. Quincy buried himself in the studio for months on end. while Peggy grew weary of holding up the facade of a perfect home. It all came to a head on a March night in 1990 when Quincy returned from a long trip to Europe. He pushed open the living room door to find Peggy sitting alone, surrounded by suitcases packed tight, on the table. She left a divorce letter and the only wedding photo they had ever framed. No reproach, no goodbye, only a hollow silence that signaled all their magic had finally disappeared. 16, Ossie Davis and Ruby Dee, a couple as beautiful as legend, holding hands on stage and daring all of America to change. While many black men in Hollywood once hid from politics to protect their fame. Ossie Davis chose to stand tall against every danger since the 1940s. He had been an actor, a writer, and an activist whose deep voice could move crowds. But it was Ruby Dee who became the flame that set Ossie's life alight in ways no one expected. Ruby was praised not only for her performances in A Raisin in the Sun and Do the Right Thing. She also captivated Hollywood with a classic beauty, hard-to-forget smooth brown skin, thick black hair always neatly tied back, and deep eyes that carried both the pain and the hope of black American women. People said when Ruby walked into a room, she brought a quiet confidence no one could ignore. They met in 1946 on a small New York stage. Ossie was rehearsing lines in a solemn voice when Ruby appeared in a blue dress that hugged her slender figure. Her gaze met his as if asking, "Are you brave enough to love someone who will never bow her head?" From that moment, they were inseparable. On December 9, 1948, they married. That wedding had no lavish gown, no orchestra, only a promise to stand together no matter how the stage shifted or storms arrived. Nearly 60 years later, they raised 3 children, wrote books, won Tony, Emmy, and Grammy Awards, and became symbols of the fight for equality. But no one forgot that spring night in 1965 when they returned from the march in Alabama. The small living room glowed with light, scattered with leaflets. Ruby untied her headscarf, revealing hair dusty from the road, then turned her face to Ossie, her eyes heartbreakingly beautiful. She whispered, her voice hoarse with exhaustion, "If tomorrow you don't come back, remember I love you more than any role." Indeed, they kept that vow to the end. In February 2005, Ossie Davis died in his sleep while filming in Miami Beach. Ruby sat quietly beside the empty hotel bed for hours, her hand still clutching the old wedding ring. 9 years later, she too closed her eyes in peace. Perhaps this was Hollywood's most beautiful love story, a love brave enough to challenge a century of injustice and still keep its tender gaze to the very last breath. 15. Denzel Washington and Pauletta Pearson, the most powerful man on the silver screen and the wife whose quiet beauty outshone every spotlight. Among the black male artists who married Hollywood's most beautiful women, Denzel Washington and Pauletta Pearson are always mentioned as a couple who sparked both envy and curiosity. They were not some fleeting affair lit by a few magazine photos before dissolving. They were proof of a lasting love, strong enough to survive decades full of temptations and trials. Denzel became world famous for embodying steely, powerful men, from Malcolm X to Training Day. He was hailed as the most powerful black star in Hollywood, honored with countless awards, breaking barriers previous generations could not. When he climbed on stage to accept his Oscar, millions cheered. But there was always one woman standing behind the curtain, watching him with gentle eyes. That was Pauletta. From a young age, Pauletta stood out with her unique, understated beauty. Her black hair always gleamed smooth, her skin flawless, her features harmoniously set with full lips and sparkling dark eyes. She was never the type to seek attention, yet in any room she entered, people turned to look. Pauletta's beauty was not only in her appearance, but in the quiet confidence that many said gave her a magnetic presence that made men both enchanted and cautious. They met in 1977 while working on a television film. Denzel was not yet a star, while Pauletta already had a respected stage career, after many discreet dates. They decided to marry in 1983, stepping into a shared life that would last nearly half a century. Yet that marriage was never as serene as the polished photos suggested. As Denzel rose to the heights of fame, rumors of affairs and scandals began to swirl. Tabloids once printed photos of him beside a co-star, claiming his marriage was fractured. Another time, Pauletta was photographed leaving a restaurant alone, her face set and cold, fueling public speculation. But the most surprising thing was that she did not choose to disappear behind closed doors. Pauletta continued to appear beside her husband at major events, still wearing her calm smile, as if to prove she was the only one strong enough to stand by him through all the storms. Over 40 years after their wedding, they still hold hands on the red carpet. Many have asked Denzel what kept them together. The answer is visible in every picture, a man of towering power. And next to him, a woman whose quiet, steadfast beauty could never be eclipsed by any fame. 14. Marvin Gaye and Anna Gordy. When a soul genius fell into a seductive and destructive marriage with a woman more powerful than any spotlight. Marvin Gaye conquered the world with What's Going On, his voice both sweet and desperate, like a premonition of his own life. In 1964, Marvin married Anna Gordy, a woman 17 years older, known for her stern beauty and a regal air that made everyone wary. She had a delicate face, hair always pinned up, and cold but strangely alluring eyes. At Motown parties, Anna appeared in dark silk dresses, making Marvin believe no one could ever rival that elegance. But behind the glamour was a relationship thick with jealousy, addiction, and deceit. Once, Marvin disappeared for 3 days, returning with a face gaunt from cocaine, while Anna sat silently in the living room, the lamp still on, as if waiting for him to confess. Many said Anna was so beautiful and proud that Marvin never truly believed he deserved her. When they divorced, he wrote, "Here, my dear, to pour out all the bitterness, and for the rest of his life, he could never shake the haunting of the woman who both saved and drowned his heart." 13. Otis Redding and Zelma, Atwood, a rare, peaceful love. But fate struck it down like a blow that crushed all hope. Otis Redding was famous across America for his raw, mournful voice in Sittin' on the Dock of the Bay. But offstage, he was a gentleman who looked only to Zelma Atwood. Zelma was no celebrated actress, yet she was beautiful in a familiar way, healthy brown skin, kind dark eyes, and a smile that made Otis forget every exhaustion after a show. They married in 1961, raised children in their warm Georgia home, trying to keep life normal amid endless applause outside. In December 1967, Otis promised he would come home early for dinner to tell her about a new project. But that afternoon, his private plane crashed into the frozen lake in Wisconsin. Zelma sat by the radio all night, clutching their wedding photo. When the official news came, she only closed her eyes softly, as if someone had turned out every light in her heart. For many, Zelma was a simple woman whose beauty lay in her loyalty and faith, the very things Otis considered the most precious treasures of his life. 12. Louis Armstrong and Lucille Wilson, a passionate marriage with the Harlem Rose. Louis Armstrong had gone through 3 marriages and countless fleeting affairs, but no one ever held his heart as long as Lucille Wilson. Lucille was a celebrated dancer at the Cotton Club, called the Harlem Rose for her rare, captivating beauty skin gleaming like honey, a supple figure, and deep eyes full of confidence. They met in 1938 when Lucille was dancing under golden lights, and Louis stood silently at the back of the hall. She was not only beautiful, but proud, daring to turn him down many times because she wanted respect more than conquest. In 1942, Louis married Lucille, beginning nearly 30 years of passion and turbulence. Some nights, Louis came home drunk, and Lucille would sit in the armchair, her eyes a mix of reproach and sorrow. Even so, she was always the only one to hold his hand through sickness. When Louis died in 1971, Lucille clutched their wedding portrait, her black hair already streaked with gray. She once said true beauty was never just about dazzling looks, but about loving completely, and staying until the very end. 11. Richard Roundtree and Kathy Long, a tumultuous marriage with a 1970s screen beauty. When Richard Roundtree donned the black leather coat and strode through Harlem in Shaft, he became the first strong black male icon Hollywood ever celebrated. But behind the scenes, Richard was also captivated by a breathtaking woman, Kathy Long. Kathy was not just an actress, she was famous for her bouncy brown hair and gray eyes, cold as frost. In 1973, they married in a private ceremony in Los Angeles, where guests whispered that Richard had finally won the Ice Queen he was determined to conquer at any cost. Throughout the 1970s, the couple graced the cover of Ebony magazine as the image of a perfect marriage. But behind it all were nights when Kathy screamed and wept because Richard vanished with other women. Once, she threw his suitcase down the stairs, only to welcome him home again the next day. The combination of Kathy's chilly beauty and Richard's untamed charisma made their marriage as alluring as it was an endless battle. 10. Leon Isaac Kennedy and Jane Kennedy. Two icons of black Hollywood beauty in a scandalous marriage. Leon Isaac Kennedy was a rising action star, while Jane Kennedy was hailed as one of the most beautiful women of the 1970s, with perfect curves and a striking face that had once earned her a beauty crown. When they married in 1971, People magazine called them the most powerful black couple in Hollywood. At every party, Jane would wear white silk gowns, the camera flashes glinting off her sleek brown skin. But behind the doors of their Beverly Hills mansion raged storms of jealousy. Rumors of Jane's affair with an NFL player spread across the tabloids. Many nights, Leon drove away, leaving Jane alone in the armchair, her eyes red. Their 1970s were both a golden age and the start of cracks no one could mend. In the end, the marriage collapsed amid regret and scandal that haunted them both for life. 9. Jim Kelly and Rosalind Miles, a blazing romance with the black beauty who set Hollywood ablaze. Jim Kelly exploded onto the screen with his afro hair and lightning kicks, becoming the only black martial arts icon to stand beside Bruce Lee. But just as his fame erupted, he fell into a headline-making romance with Rosalind Miles, the seductive actress famed for her unreal waistline and hypnotic eyes. In 1973, they were often spotted hand in hand, leaving the studio at midnight. Rosalind's smile making photographers never lower their cameras. Rosalind once wore a thin red silk dress, striding beside Jim at the Enter the Dragon premiere, prompting the press to declare she was like fire burning in the night. But that intensity was also the blade that cut them down. They fought over grueling film schedules and rumors of betrayal. One night, Jim disappeared, leaving Rosalind collapsed on the carpet as the flashbulbs outside kept flickering. In the end, the affair ended abruptly, but everyone who witnessed it said they had lived faster and more fiercely than any other couple. 8. John Amos and Lillian Lehman, A Short Life with the Beautiful, Cold Professor. In the late 1970s, as Good Times turned John Amos into the most respected black man on American television, he fell for Lillian Lehman, the actress and drama professor revered by students for her sharp intellect and uncommon beauty. Lillian had a chiseled face, black hair tied neatly, and a gaze so cold no one dared to joke. At a 1977 theater seminar, she walked into the room with a straight-backed stride and a discreet smile, making John realize he had lost all control. In winter 1978, they married quietly, believing love could overcome every barrier. But less than a year later, their marriage became a string of bitter nights. In March 1979, John walked out carrying a suitcase, while Lillian leaned against the window, clutching their wedding photo as if determined not to shed a tear. Though everything shattered too fast, he later admitted she was the woman so beautiful and resolute that she left him both captivated and terrified for the rest of his life. 7. Richard Pryor and Jennifer Lee, the woman of cold beauty. In 1977, as Richard Pryor stood atop the world of comedy, he appeared with Jennifer Lee, the stage actress with silky blonde hair and dreamy blue eyes that made every camera freeze. From their first meeting, Jennifer exuded a serenity Richard craved, the opposite of the chaos always roaring inside him. In August 1979, they married in a discreet ceremony, but within months, the dark side of genius emerged. One night in May 1980, Richard set fire to the living room in a drug frenzy, and Jennifer walked through the cold black smoke, leaving without looking back. Yet 3 weeks later, she returned, still wearing the same calm beauty that left everyone bewildered. For years, they loved and hated, split and reunited, leaving behind a story many called proof that love can be as beautiful and dangerous as a sweet poison. 6. Isaac Hayes and Adrienne, the funk king and the actress whose beauty erased all limits. When Theme from Shaft topped the charts in 1971, Isaac Hayes thought he had reached every peak. But then, in spring 1972, he met Adrienne, the television actress with a slender frame, skin soft as velvet, and deep black eyes. The first time she stepped into the Memphis studio in a thin red silk dress, the entire band fell silent, staring as if she were not real. By summer 1973, they married, hand in hand at every Motown event, becoming the couple that dazzled Hollywood. But Adrienne's beauty and independence also left Isaac adrift. In fall 1975, after months buried in the studio and hedonistic nights, Adrienne sat alone on the porch, her fingers slipping over prayer beads. When they split in early 1977, people said it was the end for two souls who loved too fiercely, a genius who lived to conquer the world, and a woman so beautiful that nothing else seemed to matter. 5. Al Green and Shirley Kyle's the cold beauty who drove a genius to his end. In Memphis in 1977, Al Green was the king of soul, the man who turned a honeyed voice into an addiction millions couldn't resist. But in the cheering crowds, only Shirley Kyles, the young actress with straight black hair and sad eyes, could make Al feel small. That year, they married, believing love could cover all the darkness. But illusions fell apart faster than any record. One winter night in 1978, Shirley sat on the cold tile floor, staring at a gold Let's Stay Together record and the divorce papers. When Al came home, the unfamiliar perfume clinging to his collar, Shirley hurled the record, shattering it into the wall like a blade, reminding him no song was enough to keep a woman too tired of waiting. 4. Marvin Gaye and Janice Hunter, a beauty that defied every rumor of infidelity, if Al Green still held on to some shred of reason. Marvin Gaye let go of it the moment Janice Hunter walked into the studio in 1973. She was a 17-year-old girl with deep brown eyes and a smile both innocent and defiant, making him forget the song he was singing. In 1977, they married, despite all the whispers that Marvin married Janice out of obsession more than love. They spent wild nights in a giant mansion, the floor covered in cassette tapes. And then came the days when Marvin disappeared into addiction. In the summer of 1981, he left for Belgium for an entire month, leaving Janice alone with their small child in a house that felt too big. Marvin's friends said that was the price you paid for loving a woman so beautiful you no longer knew who you were. 3. Curtis Mayfield and Althida. Mayfield, a beauty that defied a century of segregation. Unlike the two loud affairs before, Curtis Mayfield always moved slower, more quietly. But when he married Althida in 1978, everyone knew the funk genius had finally found the woman who made him tremble. Althida was an actress with a delicate face and an enchanting gaze, bringing him the illusion of peace. Then, on a summer night in 1990, a stage accident struck, and Curtis was paralyzed in front of the crowd. From that night on, Althida sat by his hospital bed every evening, her hand resting on his shoulder, her black hair falling across a face still heartbreakingly beautiful. People said Curtis had written hundreds of songs about hope, but his real tragedy was loving a woman too strong to let go and too gentle to ever blame. 2. Barry White and Glodian White, the Soul Queen. So beautiful, her husband forgot who he was. When Barry White was preparing to release Can't Get Enough of Your Love. Babe in 1974, he was at the height of his fame. But right then, Glowden White appeared, so stunning with her oval face, smooth brown skin, and eyes that knew exactly how to make Barry forget himself. She was not only the lead singer of Love Unlimited, but also the model of a refined, intelligent woman. So beautiful that every magazine rushed to call them the royal couple of soul. Right after the wedding, the press chased every detail of their private life. One September night in 1977, Barry returned from a Las Vegas tour, walked into the living room, and saw Glowden sitting on the floor, holding a letter from a woman he had once been with. She didn't cry. She just looked up and asked, "How many other women do you plan to love before you remember you married me?" In 1983, when Barry had just signed a new recording contract, Glowden suddenly moved out, taking their 2 children. There was no divorce filing, no explanation, for months. Barry stood on stage singing about sweet love, but backstage, he quietly confessed to his assistant, "I'm not afraid of losing platinum records. I'm afraid of losing that beautiful woman again." In the end, they did come back together, but they were never whole again. 1. Harry Belafonte and Julie Robinson, a beauty that made all of America seethe with hate. When Day-O put Harry Belafonte on top in the late 1950s, he wasn't just a successful singer, but also the voice of the civil rights movement. That was why when he fell in love with Julie Robinson, a white actress with blonde hair and a slender figure like a movie star. Hollywood went mad. In 1957, they married amid countless threats and hate mail. Once, after a protest in 1963, Harry returned to their New York home, his shirt still covered in ash. Julie was standing in the kitchen doorway, holding a newspaper with a photo of her husband beside Martin Luther King Jr. Her face was still coldly beautiful, but her eyes were red. They had grown used to strangers cursing them in the street, to late-night calls raging that they were the shame of America. Yet for 40 years, Julie never left him once. Harry once admitted, "People think I was strong because of the civil rights movement. But honestly, the hardest thing in my life was to walk into a room full of prejudice, hand in hand with a woman so beautiful that everyone hated us just because they couldn't stop looking." When they decided to divorce in 2004, there was no scandal, only the quiet exhaustion after half a century of fighting. Julie moved out, leaving Harry with an old wedding photo. The edges already faded, but her face still as beautiful as the first day he loved her. And those are the stories proving that beauty can be a power strong enough to make even the most invincible legends bow their heads. They once stood atop fame, believing they could never be weak. But then, just one look, one smile so hauntingly beautiful, made every proud wall collapse. Share in the comments which wife of a black legend you think was the most beautiful. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to discover more secrets no one dares to tell about this dazzling world of fame.